Good afternoon, guests. Welcome to the Chau Chak Wing Museum this afternoon. It is lovely to have you with us. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting today on the traditional lands of the Gadi people of the Eora Nation. We are on Gadigal lands. And I personally, and on behalf of the museum, would like to pay our respect to the traditional custodians of those lands, sea and water, and acknowledge elders past and present. My name's Craig Barker. I'm the Head of Public Engagement for the Chau Chak Wing Museum, and it is lovely to have you with us on International Museum Day. So thank you for spending time in a museum, and a reminder that Sounds Cafe is open this afternoon as well too, so go and have a refreshment afterwards. But I'm especially pleased to be introducing our speakers today for two reasons. One is my own personal connection with Cyprus and my own personal connection with our presenters. But the other is to recognise on International Museum Day the important role in terms of our preservation of cultural heritage for future generations, the important role played in the hunting, gathering and collection of items that have been taken illegally from one country into another. The whole issue of repatriation, the whole issue of the return of cultural heritage, and the whole issue of illicit trafficking of cultural heritage, as everyone in this room is aware, I am sure, an incredibly complicated and complex matter. And it's one, as we'll hear today, from a legal perspective and from a policing perspective, that takes much, much money and much time and much dedication by workers devoted to the process of finding, retrieving and repatriating those stolen items. So whilst many in the room are familiar with many of the current conversations and discussions about the return of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander material to Australia, what is lovely today is to be able to present this discussion and this broader conversation about looting and illicit trafficking from a different nation's perspective. Cyprus is important to the University of Sydney and is very important to the Chau Chak Wing Museum collection. As I've mentioned in the introduction to last night's talk for anyone who was able to join us, but the entire discipline of archaeology in this institution is grounded in the archaeological investigations in Cyprus, beginning right back in the 1930s, actually. My own excavations at Paphos are merely part of that long legacy of Australian engagement and involvement. So it is exciting to have my friends and colleagues from Cyprus being able to present this afternoon on some of the successes and some of the achievements that the Republic of Cyprus has been able to engage in recent years in terms of the complex matter of the return of illicitly trafficked cultural heritage. The Cypriot experience is even more complicated than many other nations because of the events of 1974 that saw the illegal invasion and occupation of the northern part of the island. And you'll hear more about that during our presentation today. Before I introduce our speakers, I will just quickly mention that the High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus, Antonis Simodis, is currently delayed on his way from Canberra. He was meant to be with us, so will possibly be joining us midway through the presentation. But in the meantime, to warmly welcome our speakers. Dr. Marina Solomidou-Ieronymidou is the Director of the Department of Antiquities of Cyprus. Marina is an archaeologist with decades of experience in the archaeology of Cyprus, and in particular, her excavations of the medieval sugar mills at Episcopi and at Colossi. She gained her doctorate from the Sorbonne in 2001, and is involved in many scientific and academic organisations in Cyprus. She's held the role of Director of the Department of Antiquities of Cyprus since 2014, and sadly will be retiring from that position, sadly from the position of those of us who work with the department all the time, sadly will be retiring from that role in a couple of months' time. Joining Marina today is Michalis Gavrielides, who is the Chief Inspector of the Police Office for Combating Illegal Possessions and Trafficking of Antiquities, based at the Cyprus Police Headquarters in Nicosia. Michalis is widely recognised for this work by the international policing community and has likewise presented at many international conferences. Both Michalis and Marina this afternoon will present on different aspects of Cyprus's struggle to repatriate cultural material, to bring it back home and to allow it to be rooted again within its original context. Both of them represent the Cyprus's National Committee for Combating Looting and Illicit Trafficking of Cultural Heritage, which was created in 2015, and I think possibly the greatest of the many, many legacies of Marina's tenure as the director of the department. So I'm going to hand over now, but in terms of how this afternoon is going to progress, Marina will give a short presentation. Then Michalis will take the floor and will show a video highlighting some of the cultural atrocities that have taken place in the North over the past decades. Michalis will then give another short presentation, and then I'm going to lead a question and answer with both of them, and we'll invite some questions from the floor at that point in time. Thank you for participating this afternoon, and may I warmly welcome Marina.
Good afternoon to you all. Let me just start by thanking the organizers of these presentations, and not only, and especially my colleague, Craig Barker, with whom we collaborate a lot of years now. So, like most so-called source countries, Cyprus has a long and troubled history of its cultural heritage being extensively dug out of the earth and exported in enormous numbers. The manic-like activities of 19th century treasure hunters, the turbulent political developments of the 20th century, including colonialism, internal strife, the 1974 invasion, and ongoing occupation of the island by Turkey, have hindered efforts towards the better protection of cultural heritage on the island. The situation will remain severe unless a solution to the Cyprus problem is reached. The damage caused is grave and in many cases irreversible. Turkey continues to ignore internationally binding treaties, and the Turkish army continues to exert complete military control in the areas it occupies, preventing the government of the Republic of Cyprus from protecting archaeological sites, monuments, and museums there. In the occupied areas of Cyprus, there are over 200 listed ancient monuments. In its efforts to continue safeguarding the cultural heritage of the areas not under its effective control, the government of the Republic of Cyprus continues to list ancient monuments. Since 1974, damage has been recorded with regards to all categories of cultural property in the occupied areas of Cyprus. Museums have been looted, and so have many private antiquities collections. Thousands of cultural objects are missing, and an unknown number has been illegally excavated and exported, leaving behind them, of course, no official record. Important archaeological sites have been destroyed, and archaeologically sensitive areas have remained unprotected and unmonitored. Churches have been severely vandalized and even demolished. Icons and other ecclesiastical objects have been stolen, church frescoes and mosaics have been removed, and in many cases, they have been traced to illegal antiquities trade markets and auctions around the world. Only a small percentage of these items have been located and repatriated. It is therefore evident that the destructive effects of the Turkish invasion and occupation on Cyprus's cultural heritage are ongoing and unfortunately, in many cases, irreversible. Looting, mainly of ancient tombs, is also reported in the areas that are under the control of the government of Cyprus. This confirms the existence of networks active in the illicit trafficking of Cypriot cultural heritage, and that there is, of course, an active destination market. The Department of Antiquities, as the relevant government department responsible for the protection and preservation of the island's cultural heritage, is deeply involved in the international struggle to prevent looting and illicit trafficking of cultural heritage, and makes tireless efforts to repatriate illegally exported objects. The 1935 Antiquities Law stipulates that all antiquities lying undiscovered on the land or in the sea are the property of the government, and whoever discovers an antiquity and is not a holder of an excavation license must hand in the objects at the nearest museum or police station. The Antiquities Law is especially strict with regard to the export of cultural goods and the dealing in antiquities. Article 27 of the law provides that no person is allowed to export an antiquity without a license to export. The export license may be granted only for temporary exhibition purposes or for the study and scientific analysis of excavation material. Furthermore, it is not allowed to grant a permit for the export of a private collection. The fines for illegal export have been raised to 5 years or of 5 years of imprisonment or a 45,000 euro fine, or to both penalties. The same law provides that no person shall deal in antiquities. Beyond its national legislation, existing international conventions that Cyprus has ratified regarding the illicit export and trade of cultural heritage are also of significance, such as the 1954 Hague Convention on the protection of cultural property in the event of an armed conflict, and its two protocols, 1954 and 1999, the 1970 UNESCO Convention on the means of prohibiting and preventing the illicit import, export, and transfer of ownership of cultural property, the 1995 UNIDROIT Convention on stolen and illegally exported cultural objects, and the Council of Europe Convention on offenses relating to cultural property, also known as the Nicosia Convention. This new convention, the last one that I mentioned, which Cyprus opened the signature during the ministerial conference, which took place in Lefkosia in May 2017, is currently the only international treaty focusing on criminal measures and sanctions on illicit activities, such as the destruction and trafficking of cultural heritage, while also providing a complete set of measures to foster international cooperation between states to better prevent and combat the illicit trafficking and deliberate destruction of cultural property. The Department of Antiquities participates in the meetings of the subsidiary committee of the UNESCO 1970 Convention, as well as in the meetings of the Intergovernmental Committee for promoting the return of cultural property to its countries of origin or its restitution in case of illicit appropriation, and follows the recommendations of these international instruments. At a European level, the 2014-60-EU directive on the return of cultural objects unlawfully removed from the territory of a member state provides for cooperation mechanisms and return proceedings against the possessor to secure the return of a cultural object unlawfully removed from the territory of one EU country to the territory of another EU country on or after the 1st of January of 1993. Council registration 116/2009 on the export of cultural goods seeks to ensure uniform controls at the EU's external borders, whereas the European Parliament and the Council Regulation EU 2019/880 on the introduction and the import of cultural goods aims to prevent the illicit trade in cultural goods, in particular when such trade may contribute to the financing of terrorist activities, and to prohibit the import into the Union Customs territory of cultural goods that were illicitly exported from third countries. It is also expected to have a preventing effect on the tax evasion, money laundering, and organized crime activities. Of special importance in the fight against the illicit trafficking of antiquities are the numerous bilateral and trilateral agreements and MOUs that Cyprus has signed with other countries. These have the potential of enabling investigations and return procedures. For example, acting on Article 9 of the 1970 UNESCO Convention, an MOU was signed in 2002 between the government of the Republic of Cyprus and the United States of America for the imposition of import restrictions by the USA to protect specified cultural property. This MOU continues to be renewed every 5 years. Other similar agreements have been signed between the Republic of Cyprus and the state of Georgia, the Swiss Federal Council, the government of the People's Republic of China, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the government of the Republic of Bulgaria, the state of Israel, the Palestinian National Authority, the government of the state of Kuwait, the Russian Federation, the Hellenic Republic, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and similar agreements are in the process of negotiation with other countries also, especially countries that are currently suffering war and internal strife. At a national level, the importance of cooperation between government departments cannot be overemphasized. Over the past years, a more structured and coordinated approach has been adopted on the issue of illicit trafficking of cultural heritage in Cyprus. One of the most important results of this collaboration was the appointment in 2015 of a national committee for the combating of looting and the illicit trafficking of cultural heritage. The committee convenes on a monthly basis and comprises of expert representatives from the Department of Antiquities, the Law Office, the Cyprus Police, the Department of Customs and Excise, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Cultural Services of the Deputy Ministry of Culture, and also the Church of Cyprus. Apart from tackling specific cases that arise with regards to repatriations or the detaining of cultural objects from other countries at customs, the committee also organizes training workshops for members of the Cyprus Police and customs officials. These training workshops mainly involve issues related to identifying cultural objects and relevant legislation on the protection of cultural heritage. The Department of Antiquities conducts regular online searches, the results of which definitely confirm that cultural objects originating from Cyprus are being marketed. With eBay launched in the late 1990s and the subsequent global explosion of online purchases, the market environment has dramatically changed. eBay offers the opportunity for private transactions to occur through auction, and at the same time, more specialized internet sites have been created, selling antiquities from virtual galleries either for a set price or through auction. At the Department of Antiquities, the search for Cypriot antiquities online is performed on a daily basis. When Cypriot antiquities are identified online, they are filed, and each one is checked against the archives kept by the DOA on stolen or missing objects. Most of these have been stolen or are missing as a result of the Turkish invasion and occupation, such as objects from museums in the occupied areas or from foreign missions storerooms, or antiquities from registered private collections in the occupied areas. Of the thousands of Cypriot antiquities identified online over the last years, few examples have a clear, solid, and what seems to be legitimate acquisition history. Most objects either have no acquisition history at all, or when it is mentioned, it is vague and suspicious. Very few cases provide information that reaches 1970, and only a handful of cases demonstrate the object's legal removal from the island. At this point, it is relevant to stress the vital role of digitization in any country's efforts to identify and repatriate stolen cultural objects. It is by now widely recognized and acknowledged that digitization and systematic inventorying act as extremely useful and important preventive measures in the fight against illicit trafficking of cultural heritage. Inventories kept by the Department of Antiquities provide to a very large extent for the risks of misappropriation and theft. A specially designed inventory system is maintained by the DOA under the title CADIP, Cyprus Archaeological Digitization Program. CADIP aims at increasing efficiency and effectiveness in the management of movable antiquities and ancient monuments through detailed digitization. The system also applies a geographical information system, integrating geographical data with archaeological findings. Inventories of private collections are being digitized and filed in such a way that the retrieval of information is made faster and easier. In addition, the records of the objects that were part of one of the largest private collections of antiquities, which remained in the occupied part of Cyprus after the Turkish invasion, have been digitized. Objects from these collections have been tracked down in the past in auction houses and antique shops abroad. A digital database of photographs and other information related to ancient monuments and sites in occupied Cyprus has been set up. The database includes detailed images taken prior to 1974 of icons, frescoes, mosaics, architectural members belonging to monuments and sites in occupied Cyprus. This database, which is continuously updated, enhances national efforts to monitor and protect cultural objects that are illicitly trafficked. The pre-1974 slide images of the objects that are part of state and private collections in the occupied areas have also been digitized. Consequently, the process of checking antiquities that are put up for auction against those that are currently missing has been made quicker and more efficient. Antiquities have been repatriated, some through negotiations, other through donations, or through purchases from auction houses and through legal battles. Here I shall mention some of the most important cases. A hoard of 159 silver coins of the 4th century BC from Amathus were repatriated from Italy with the collaboration of the Italian authorities and the Carabinieri in June 2002 on the strength of the 1970 convention. Another important repatriation case concerns the wall paintings of the Church of Agios Ephimianos of Lysi, which were plundered and illegally exported from the occupied village of Lysi sometime after 1974 and were repatriated in 2012. The wall paintings were returned to Cyprus following the coordinated efforts of the competent authorities of the Republic of Cyprus and the Church of Cyprus after being kept for nearly 3 decades in the Menil Foundation in Houston, Texas, in the USA. A very large number of objects repatriation occurred after an almost 20-year court case in Munich. On March 18, 2013, the Regional Court of Munich rejected the appeal of the Turkish citizen Aydin Dikmen against the decision of the District Court of Munich for the repatriation of cultural treasures which were stolen from at least 50 churches in the occupied areas of the Republic of Cyprus. In November 2013, 173 ecclesiastical cultural objects were repatriated, and in August 2015, 34 ecclesiastical and prehistoric cultural objects were repatriated. The antiquities, all stolen from the occupied areas of the Republic, were found and confiscated after a raid that was conducted in 1997 on the premises of the Turkish antiquities dealer Aydin Dikmen in Munich. Among the repatriated antiquities were mosaic fragments from the Church of Panagia Kanakaria in Lithrangomi, Famagusta district, whose wall mosaics had been heavily vandalized and dispersed around the world. The wall mosaics of Panagia Kanakaria date back to the 6th century AD and are highly important works of art and among the few remaining early Christian mosaics in the world. The mosaics are dated to the first years of Justinian, the first rule, between 527 and 565, excuse me. The Kanagaria mosaics constitute the most representative example of early Justinian art on the island, an art that had not yet become strict and austere, as was the art that developed towards the end of Justinian's rule. Today, only one fresco of the Virgin Mary survives above the church's south entrance. It is suffice to say that fragments of the mosaics were initially repatriated in 1983 from Germany through the mediation of an art dealer in London, others in 1991 following a lawsuit filed by the Greek Orthodox Church and the Republic of Cyprus in the US. District Court of Indianapolis, as fragments were located in the possession of art dealer Peck Goldberg, while in 1997, more fragments were located and returned from Germany. In November 2018, another piece of the looted Kanagaria puzzle was repatriated, the mosaic of Apostle Marcos, which adorned the apse of the occupied church of Panagia Kanagaria, was repatriated to Cyprus from the Netherlands. The mosaic was located in the Principality of Monaco by a Dutch private detective known for tracing major works of art, working with the police authorities of many countries. Information about the mosaic was originally provided to the Cypriot authorities in 2016. As I have mentioned above, pieces of the mosaic, such as the figures of Apostles Luke, Bartholomew, Matthew, James, Thaddeus, Thomas, and Andrew, as well as the upper part of the Virgin Mary and Christ, the hands of the Virgin Mary and the hand of Archangel Gabriel have been gradually repatriated since 1983, while a few more pieces of the mosaic decoration are still missing. The mosaic of Apostle Marcos was handed over on the 16th of November in 2018 at the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus in The Hague. The repatriation was made possible through the coordinated actions of all involved authorities of the state, including the Department of Antiquities, the Cyprus Police, the Law Office of the Republic, the Department of Customs and Excise, and the Church of Cyprus. Efforts to repatriate the remaining mosaics from the Church of Panagia Kanagaria are ongoing. On the 1st of January 2019, 4 wall paint fragments were handed over to the Cyprus authorities at the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus at The Hague. The wall fragments originate from churches, again in occupied Cyprus. On the 2nd of September 2019, an important antiquity dating to the end of the 4th century or the beginning of the 3rd, or originating from Cyprus, was handed over at the offices of the permanent delegation of the Republic of Cyprus to the European Union in Brussels. The Cypriot antiquity was in the possession of a resident of Brussels in Belgium. On the 21st August 2020, a Cypriot bichromeware miniature clay jar dating to the Cypro-Archaic I period was handed over to the High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus in London by the London Metropolitan Police. In August 2021, the Royal Iconostasis doors of the Church of Agios Anastasios in the occupied Peristerono Pigi village in the Famagusta district, dated by an inscription precisely in 1778, were repatriated from Japan. The Royal Iconostasis doors were returned to Cyprus after year-long efforts that were intensified in 2020 and 2021, thus concluding one of the most renowned and at the same time complex cases of repatriation. The Royal Iconostasis doors were located in Japan in the 1990s at the Kanazawa College of Art. In July 2022, last year, the despotic icon of the enthroned Christ, which dates to the end of the 15th or the beginning of the 16th century and originates from the occupied church of Antiphonides in Kalogrea in the Karinia district, was repatriated to Cyprus. The repatriation of the icon from Zurich was achieved after many years of effort, which intensified in recent years giving a successful conclusion to one of the most famous and complex cases of repatriation. The case of the looting of the Antiphonides church by the Turkish occupation army and its collaborators, and the sale of the frescoes, portable icons, and fragmented wood carvings, the fate of many of which are still unknown, proves once again the destructive consequences of the Turkish invasion on the cultural heritage of the island. The repatriation was made possible again as a result of the coordinated efforts of the Department of Antiquities, the Cyprus Police, the Law Office, and in close cooperation with the Church of Cyprus. The delivery was made in July last year by the public prosecutor of the canton of Zurich to what you see on the screen. The most recent case involving the repatriation of Cypriot cultural heritage occurred just this April, only a month ago. On the 26th of April, 2023, the repatriation of over 80 Cypriot antiquities from the USA was successfully completed. The antiquities date to various periods of Cypriot history from around 2000 BC up to the 18th century. These include, amongst others, ancient clay and glass vessels, limestone sculpture, coins, and an ecclesiastical wall painting fragment. All antiquities had been handed over to the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus in Washington by the USA authorities or by private individuals. Specifically, on the 20th of April, an official repatriation ceremony took place at the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus in Washington, signaling the return of the antiquities to Cyprus. On the 26th of April, the antiquities arrived at the Cyprus Museum in Nicosia, where they were unpacked and will be conserved and digitized as part of the DOA's digitization program. This leads us to the reason we are here today, which is to conclude one more extremely important repatriation of Cypriot cultural heritage. Specifically, the repatriation of 36 Cypriot antiquities, which is facilitated by two Australian universities, namely the Australian National University and Sydney University. Some sensitive individuals felt that it was their moral obligation to return these cultural objects to the place to which they belong. The repatriation cases, I just wanted to say that it is in such instances that we as cultural heritage professionals feel that there is still hope in all these struggles that we have in order to prevent looting and illicit trafficking and to promote the repatriation of cultural heritage. These repatriation cases create truly invaluable opportunities for further fruitful cooperation and collaboration between countries and their respective government departments, museums, and academic institutions. Concluding this brief presentation on the Department of Antiquities' efforts to identify and repatriate cultural objects, I wish to thank warmly the Australian High Commission in Cyprus, and especially Her Excellency Australian High Commissioner Mrs. Fiona McKergo and Deputy Head of Mission and Council Michelle Anderson, the High Commission of the Republic of Cyprus in Australia, and especially His Excellency Mr. Antonis Samoudis, and Deputy Head of Mission Mr. Stavros Nicolaou. We also express our sincere appreciation towards Dr. Georgia Pike Rowney of NAU College of Arts and Social Sciences at the Australian National University, as well as Ms. Claire Sheridan, Senior Collections Advisor of the Research Initiatives and Infrastructure at the ANU, to Dr. Melanie Pitkin, Senior Curator of the Nicholson Collection of the University of Sydney, and of course, Dr. Craig Barker of the University of Sydney and Director of the Paphos Theatre Archaeological Project. Cyprus and Australia already have very close links in the field of cultural heritage and archaeology in particular, with Australian institutions, academics, and students currently conducting archaeological investigations on our island. Like, as Craig mentioned before, the Paphos Theatre Archaeological Project, excavating at the World Heritage listed site of Nea Paphos in Cyprus under the direction of Craig. I'm happy to say that this case of the return of Cypriot cultural heritage to Cyprus from Australia strengthens even more our bonds and opens up new avenues for research and collaboration. And I thank you for your patience.
I'll now invite Michalis up to give a introduction to a short video and then a very short presentation, and then we'll do a question and answer session from there.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and express the sincere appreciation of the Cyprus police, giving us the opportunity to present, describe, and analyze one of the most important issues facing the world today, and I refer, of course, to the destruction of Cyprus cultural heritage. I will show you a short video. I usually show it before my presentations because I believe that a picture or a video is a powerful tool to understand the reality of the situation that we have in Cyprus, and furthermore, how this destruction gives us the power to continue our work. So after this video, I will continue my presentation. Today, we present, my presentation will focus on the outline of the extension of the phenomenon of looting and trafficking of stolen cultural property. And of course, the recording of the existing mechanism dealing with the prevention and the fight against illicit trafficking of stolen cultural property. One of the most dangerous type of crime facing the world today is the illicit trafficking of cultural property. This form of criminality within the last 20 years is largely operational on an international level, whereas large quantities of the cultural and religious artifacts all over the world are being destroyed, damaged, or stolen. The annual amount of losses from the illicit trafficking of works of art worldwide is being estimated billions of dollars, whereas tens of thousands of artifacts, works of art, are stolen only in Europe every year. This fact compels all police authorities around the world and other law enforcement agencies to deal professionally and confront this form of criminality. It is recognized that the international community has become more sensitive after Palmyra-Syria war concerning this issue and compelled to protect the remaining items and limit the destruction to the lowest level. Interpol, Europol, World Customs Organization, UNESCO, and other international bodies are working towards this direction. Illegally trafficking in cultural heritage is an international crime. This is a phenomenon that affects especially the countries of origin, like Cyprus. Just by listing the countries whose cultural heritage has been looted in recent years, we will see the magnitude of the crime. Syria, Egypt, Afghanistan, Iraq, Cyprus, Greece, and many other countries worldwide. Since July 1974, as you saw before, and Mrs. Marina told you about, a great part of Cyprus' cultural heritage has been destroyed, looted, and illegally traded in different countries of the world. Specifically, more than 16,000 Christian icons and many mosaics dated back to the 6th and 5th century have been stolen or sold abroad. A quick look at the catalog of the major auction houses revealed that Byzantine art and antiquities from Mediterranean area are the main interest of collectors and consequently of smugglers. Typically, items end up in private collections around the world. Here in the slide, you can see a large amount of crates leaving from Cyprus back to 1931. So imagine how many artifacts have left from Cyprus since the years. Mentioning the above, in order to face more effectively this type of criminality and due to the serious problems that we have in Cyprus, the Cyprus police have informed the office that I am in charge combating illicit possession and trafficking of antiquities, which is eager and willing to cooperate with other specialized art units members and other relevant organizations all over the world. Among the main goals of my office are the protection, the reservation of the international cultural heritage, the fight against illicit trafficking of works of art and cultural heritage, and the immediate repatriation of stolen antiquities to their lawful owners. Towards this direction, the government of the Republic of Cyprus has engaged strict legislation like the Penal Code, the law of antiquities, the law of the export and return of cultural properties. All the above legislation is enforced by the Cyprus Police, the Department of Antiquities, and the Department of Customs and Excise, respectively. While in terms of international law, Cyprus has signed and implemented numerous international conventions, among them the Nicosia Conventions, which includes serious provision for criminal prosecution in relation to committed crimes of looting and illicit trafficking of cultural goods. In order to achieve the above objectives, my office undertakes important measures at local and international level. At local level, we apply the multidisciplinary approach, which plays the most important role in close cooperation with governmental and non-governmental organizations. The establishment of the National Committee for Combating Cultural Heritage Theft and Trafficking has made this cooperation between the competent authority more effective and has a direct impact on efforts to coordinate return and repatriation of items like what we are here today. In the field of prevention, the Cyprus Police systematically monitor and protect sensitive areas and buildings, cultural and religious heritage, like museums, churches, and so on. In addition, the Marine Police conduct frequent marine patrols and inspections of sea-going vessels. We have two recent cases of vessels that make illegal search in our area for ancient vessels. The close cooperation with the Office of Interpol is very effective. Fast exchange of information, immediate action, especially to stop sales. It's very important. We establish a network of investigators in CIDs who investigate this case, and we train them accordingly. Recently, we have trained in Cyprus with FBI and Gavrielides. Identify gaps in legislation and ongoing education. We recently increased the penalties and introduced criteria for the use of metal detectors. And we use a high technology for the prevention and detection of stealing of antiquities. Lately, we are part of two projects of creating a specialized drone and to have a high-tech software to search in the internet for stolen items. In these pictures, you can see lootings that we find in Cyprus, in some of our areas. You see the holes that they dig with different tools, the fields. I can say that Cyprus is everywhere. It's a big and an antiquity place. Whatever you dig, you can find antiquities. So it's so difficult to monitoring all the area. Regarding international cooperation, we exchange information and cooperate with European and international organizations such as Europol, Interpol, World Customs Organization, and UNESCO, as well as third countries. Participate in international conference seminars organized by Interpol at the European Union, Carabinieri, and other organizations also. We organize and coordinate cooperations under the supervision and cooperation of Europol and WCO. Close cooperation we have with FBI, Homeland Security, Carabinieri, Greek, French, Dutch police, and other specialized security police agencies. Cooperation also we have with non-profit organizations and experts abroad. We are also active member of the EU CALDNet. It's a specialized network of experts in the European Union, and we are proudly say that we are the country that create this network back 2012 when we have the presidency of the EU Council. Have also contribute to the signing of the bilateral agreements with other countries on police cooperation and fight against organized crime. Cyprus has signed and implemented numerous international conventions. The question that arises is whether these international conventions have solved the problem. The answer is no. The problem is not solved. Despite the protective measures taken by the countries and international organizations, smugglers are always ahead, finding new ways to maneuver. Very important is the lack of a single legislation, regulation, and a single mechanism for claiming and recovering stolen antiquities. In this diagram, you can see how my office is cooperated with internationally and locally with the different organization and office. So you can see here with the blue color is the national that we cooperate, and with the red and the orange is the international. So you can see this multidisciplinary approach that we try to amplify to our efforts. In this slide, I try to show you how these organized groups of looting are operated. So you can see that they have a place. Mainly local workers and citizens. Then they transfer all these items to the legal agents, and the legal agents with expert lawyers using big courts and other routes with send to markets, which are auction houses, eBay, Facebook, etc. And you see the buyers, which mainly are collectors, museum, not criminals, and the state that always try to identify and repatriate. Organized crime, terrorist groups are connected with all these groups. Usually, they find very good places to engage and do their business in war conflict zone. They are stolen. We see them in the market after 10 or 20 years because of the limitation that many countries have in their legislation. So they keep these items, have this opportunity to sell it after the limitation period. And for us, it's difficult to engage in that. We see that terrorist groups use this kind of criminality to finance their activities and organize crime too. We see many times money laundering in the extension of the sale. And the collector, with this, they have this power to gauge all this in a more way to accept. So the monitoring and the repatriation of cultural property that has been looted and stolen, especially through criminal proceedings, becomes more difficult, mainly due to the increase of both national and international active markets, lack of legislation and regulation for online auctions, increase in the illegal excavation of ancient tombs and the illegal use of metal detector, lack of evidence for the items that have been excavated illegally, use by the criminals of the legal terms due diligence, limitation period, burden of proof, good faith, that facilitate the activities of looters, art dealers, and private collectors. Criminals, smugglers, and their partners are part of a well-organized criminal network, difficult to identify. We see different legislation between countries of origin and destination. International treaties, as I said before, are not effective. Illicit trade in cultural goods is linked to money laundering, drug trafficking, financing organized crime and terrorist groups. The constant change of routes that the stolen antiquities move, depending on how friendly the environment is to the smugglers. So they try to find countries that there is a gap in legislation, corruption phenomena, etc. The lack of exchange of information and experience. This criminal phenomenon provides low risk of criminal activity with big profit, use of the dark web and electronic currency, the Bitcoin, that is difficult to identify, use of modern technology by criminal groups in their legal activities, and looting in war zones, which result in difficult cooperation with local authority and government. This is a slide. Mrs. Marina showed a lot of cases of repatriation. One of them is this case, an example of repatriation of a very important and unique icon stolen from the occupied area of Cyprus. We find them in the possession of the Russian, let's say, dealer in Switzerland. And with an effort of 10 years, which we managed to repatriate it. I will finish my presentation with the statement that it is necessary to safeguard every nation culture heritage because we have a duty to preserve history and culture for the benefits of future generations. Thank you for your attention, and we are ready for your questions.
Thank you, Michalis. That's both very sobering, but also in both presentations, also very heartening to see success stories. And let's hope that this is the beginning of a wave of positive results as well. I'm very conscious we're running out of time, but we do want to have the opportunity for questions from the floor. So if anyone does have a question, could you put your hand up and I can bring the microphone across to you? Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. Thank you both for your presentations, really illuminating. I'm just wondering, what role do you see that international museums can have in apart from the usual thing of checking provenance very carefully of things? Are there other roles you see that would be useful for international museums in this work?
Well, I think what you said is very correct. I mean, just checking due diligence in whatever item, in whatever object enters a museum, international, local, or whatsoever, and then inform immediately the different authorities of the country of which this item comes. And I believe in the collaboration of museums, of experts, whether archaeologists, conservators, police people, whoever is sensitive in these matters. And I believe that things will get better. I already see something very positive in the past, something like the last 7 years, for example. You can see behaviors showing the sensitivity of people now, of giving back the treasures of such a country. I receive letters by people whom their parents or grandparents lived in Cyprus, for example, in the 30s, in the 50s, and they died, and they inherited pieces from the Cypriot cultural heritage. And they write to us and they say, I found this in my parents' things at home. It seems that sometimes they find notes, for example, this is from Cyprus, so that they realize that they come from Cyprus, and they come back to us and say, we want to return this. These phenomena I would never see them 10 years ago. So I feel that there is hope, yes.
Any further questions?
I guess I just wanted to ask about matters to do with financial compensation of people who've been collectors. That is, people there've been looters and dealers, but people might have unwittingly bought the objects. Do you provide any compensation for them, or is that a matter for them to take up with dealers and other people?
Yes, indeed, we do that. Most of the cases that you have seen, and that antiquities were given back to us through a sensitive, I may say this term, sensitive citizens, we compensate, yes. It is, of course, not an enormous budget, let's say, that we give, but it's a compensation because these people are sensitive enough. They kept the object in good condition. They didn't destroy it because they could have done. So most of these cases, yes, the citizens are compensated.
Thank you. I think you mentioned earlier that there are local legal penalties. And I think you mentioned approximately 5 years imprisonment or €5,000 fines. Those seem relatively modest. Is there any engagement with lawmakers to increase those penalties? And second, have there been any attempted or hopefully successful prosecutions of local people? I am a lawyer, so for those of you who are wondering why I'm asking that question, because obviously deterrence, ideally you want to stop this happening. Now I appreciate there's not that control in the occupied portion, but in the balance, ideally there would be a deterrence factor to stop this theft from taking place.
Because it's a recent case that we increased the penalty. Nowadays, it's not our goal. Our goal is to make it more modern and have more restrictions than to increase the penalty. So we are in this way. Unfortunately, we don't have convictions with these high penalties. We look forward for the future to have it, and we try now to and bring and educate some prosecutors to be to specialize in the law. So with this, we will have, we think that we will have more success in convictions and fortunately to stop this kind of phenomenon.
I want to add, it's not 5,000, it's 45,000. So it's 5 years and 45,000, and it's already, increased. It was much, much less. It was 6 months, it was something like 1,000. So.
One final question from over here.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation from both of you. Thank you. Can I just ask a question? It was mentioned in the presentation about the burden of proof and how oppressive that burden of proof can be to countries, to people wanting to get their heritage back. Can I ask especially about the ecclesiastical heritage of Cyprus? What does Cyprus do to carry that burden of proof? When an old icon, an old mosaic is found in the hands of an art gallery or an auction house or in private hands, how does Cyprus show that that came from a particular church or a place in Cyprus and then help carry that burden of proof that it has?
Well, as I have shown in my presentation, we have archives, both church and the state, we do have archives. So, for example, one of 2 or 3 of these cases, which were very important for us, we had photographic material of the icon, okay, which was already on the wooden screen of the church. Or on other times, we have published material. We have the publication of a certain church, for example, before 1974. So we are in a position to ask and demand. But you are right, this is a very difficult situation that we are in because of the various legal systems in various countries. What might be legal for me might not be legal for you.
To add to that, the ideal was the burden of proof to be on the own of the possessor, not to the government of Cyprus, let's say, to explain from where and why.
If I may change the topic of conversation ever so slightly for the very final question, but it is International Museum Day. Marina, could you just briefly outline the project for the new National Cyprus Museum and some of the ambitions for that project? Because I'm sure many people in the room are not conscious of just how exciting this step forward is.
Yes, indeed. It's the right day to do so. So, yes. We had an international architectural competition a few years ago for the new Cyprus Museum to be built. We've just started the work. We are very happy about it. The competition was won by a Greek architectural office. We've already started. I don't know, Craig, if you had the chance to see that they've already excavated most of the plot. It's not far from the existing Cyprus Museum, which is our national museum. It is supposed to be finished by late 2027 or early 2028. And we are very happy about it. The old building of the existing museum dates ages ago. So although it's a historic building and we've just listed it as an ancient monument, it does not have enough space especially exhibition rooms and storerooms, of course, that we need. It cannot have the new technology that we will need, it's in the old fashion, let's say, of presenting museologically, I mean, the exhibits. So we are very happy to have just started this, the works of the new Cyprus Museum. I will not be there as the director to let's say, inaugurate, but I hope that they will invite me.
Well, of course, it will become the home for many of the objects that you and the National Committee have been able to oversee the repatriation of. So I must say that it's been a wonderful presentation, and it's been wonderful having you both in Australia over the past week and a half. These conversations were not taking place at all when I first started working in Cyprus in the 1990s. So it is so exciting to see the progression, and may the National Committee have much future success as well. Guests in the auditorium, I ask you in joining us to thank Marina and Michalis this afternoon for their presentation.